So we'll get right into it. So when we are talking about the hardening market and commoditization of captives, if we look at the impact of COVID-19, how has this changed risk management and the appetite for captives? Frank, if you want to start.
Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being invited. I think that it was a wrong invitation regarding myself when you mentioned that getting the brightest minds. So I was like, I'm not part of this list. I should not be there. So that's why I'm going to be now very quiet, and I will leave the floor to Farah so that she can give you all the brightest comments that we can have on this thing. So I'm going to do my attempt at answering this one. On a serious note, yes. So it's like a perfect storm for corporate insurance buyers and corporate risk managers. We are managing maybe the biggest crisis that any organization ever had to face, and even referring to world wars in this sense. At the same time, we are seeing, and it obviously started before COVID-19, as you mentioned, extremely steep hardening market. And the hardening market is not just about price; it's about restriction of coverage and also restriction of capacity. So a huge impact to companies where we are at the same time in need or in search for additional capacity, additional coverage, so that we can properly finance our risks. So yes, a massive challenge for organization. So yes, COVID-19 accelerated the need for organization to be properly, I would say, insured and managing the risks. The thing is that across Asia-Pac, we were seeing a development, I would say a quiet development of captives or captive feasibility studies across the market. It did accelerate recently, thanks to or because of COVID-19. But yes, the bright side of my answer to you, Lauren, is that COVID-19 is clearly putting insurance risk financing at the core of the conversation when it comes to executive committees and board of directors. The downside of it is how the people in charge of this project, how the people in charge of developing this conversation internally are properly equipped, because it's a specific conversation. It needs a specific set of skills, and also I would say the right storytelling in terms of captive should not be seen as being, I would say, a reaction to the insurance market or the reaction to a specific crisis. It should be seen as one of your organized tool to manage risk and to manage your own risk appetite. But yeah, that's the first part of my answer to you, Lauren.
Well, yeah, it's like the saying that, you know, if you are looking to get a captive when the market's already hard, you're too late, because it's not a reaction, it's a long-term strategy. So Farah, what are your thoughts on this and you know, COVID-19 and the hardening market?
Where to start? I thought we'd stop talking about this virus by June. And here we are, you know, and doesn't look like it's going anywhere anytime soon. So clearly it's something we've all just got to suck in and work through. But, you know, I am an optimist at heart. Always have been, even in this terrible, horrible time we find ourselves in. And I think there is a silver lining. And the silver lining is that actually there's an opportunity for the risk management fraternity to really push its agenda. There is an opportunity for them to show that risk management is not an operational role, it's a strategic role, and it should be. And if it's not taken seriously now, it never will. Now, with regards to self-insurance vis-a-vis the pandemic, you're absolutely right. If you're looking to set up a captive now, it may not necessarily, you know, be that beneficial. We've seen a lot of captives that are set up in Labuan that have really used their retained profits very wisely in this time of need. We've seen a lot of developments with regards to what I like to call, you know, I mean, the title today is the commoditization of captives. and it's true, but for me, it's more the democratization of captives. So for the longest time, everyone feels, risk managers out there have felt that they need to have a certain size in order to benefit from self-insurance. And then the hardening market that we saw over the last, 4 years, maybe 3-4 years, has really caused them to look at captives like almost through the glass, and go like, oh, I wish I could have one of those. But what COVID has done is that it's created this impetus to get into the store, right? And look at it and say, well, actually, maybe I could run an association. Maybe I could do some risk pooling. Maybe I could be a cell in a PCC. So really what it has created is a democratization of the idea of self-insurance. And I don't like to talk about captives specifically, but the whole idea of self-insurance generally. And I think it's fantastic. It really has brought that conversation to front and center where it has always deserved to be.
Can I, Lauren, if I may echo what Farah just said, because I think it's really core to this session. It's true that right now it's creating a momentum that it cannot be spoiled. I mean, there is this thing in the crisis management world where we say don't waste a crisis, and I think that's it. If let's say the treasurer or the CFO or the CEO door of your organization was closed in terms of engaging regarding insurance and self-insurance, as mentioned by Farah, then the door is open right now. So
yes,
and enter the place. Now then the core question is, what are you going to say? What are you going to pitch to the guys? And I think that the first thing that we say is that, let's say your company, unfortunately, is not yet equipped with a captive solution or a self-insurance mechanism that help the company. Then the first thing to say is to say to your CEO, you know what? Self-insurance is already there. The problem is it's like risk management. If you do not identify the risks, you may face risks that are still unknown to you, and this is where it's going to hurt your organization. The same applies to self-insurance. When self-insurance is not properly, I would say, identified, then it may damage badly financially your organization. So let's look at what are the risks today that are impacting the organization potentially, that are, I would say, self-insured, but not in a voluntary manner. And then let's build up something. And again, echoing what Farah said, be humble, be ambitious regarding where you want to go, but be humble regarding the first steps. Maybe about, I don't know, participating to a cell captive or things like that. But you have to start somewhere, because self-insurance will be, for me today, an absolute must for organization and at least the structuring of it.
So, I mean, obviously there's been an increase in interest of captives, everyone can see that, as well as current captive owners looking at how they can utilize their captive and use it better. So what are some of the increasingly popular captive structures? And, we've talked about cells, but obviously there are multiple options for people who are looking to get into the captive space. So, Farah, do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, so I just wanted to echo what Frank said. There's also this Chinese saying that in every crisis, there's an opportunity. And maybe this is the captivating opportunity that we've all been waiting for. But yeah, we have seen real growth in Labuan in the first half year, right? We've put on more captives in the first half year that we did in the whole of last year. And of that, which is, so we've had actually a growth in the entire insurance ecosystem. At the moment, we're home to more than 220 license holders. It's huge. It's the biggest ecosystem in Labuan actually at the moment, of which of the 11 new licenses, 7 were captives, right? Of the 7, right, 5 were PCCs. So, it just goes to show that the ability of a PCC to get ramped up really quick, to be able to offer a turnkey solution for an immediate risk that needs to be covered, as immediate as insurance can be, is there. But also, you've got other things. So you've got you've got association captives. People are looking at that. People are looking at, let's get together, trying to kind of manage our risk mutually together. There's also the master rent and captive structure. There's also, there are a lot of different permutations in Labuan, and I think that's one of the things that's quite attractive. But at the end of it, it's this real understanding and appreciation of the benefit of self-insurance and the accessibility that it has. So I think on top of that, there's also, for the PCC specifically, there's also the tax element. And, I know that every time someone talks about tax and captives, all the red flags start coming up. But I'm not talking about tax efficiency. I'm talking about the ability for the PCC to create economic substance in order to satisfy that tax requirement in a very efficient way. So that is that additional benefit. But I think more than anything else, it's the realization that this is the only way to go. Because not only is the market harder, right? There's so many esoteric kind of risks that people are just not covering at the moment. There isn't that appetite anymore, to write certain risks. And as the COVID, as this virus expands and mutes and, all the rest of it, and we suffer, the risk, and I always ask this question, right? And I'm not very popular for asking this question, but Frank knows I'm not into being popular. Who determines the risk of an insurer? Right? So I think that is important a discussion vis-a-vis the flip side of it, which is, do I need a captive? Because if the risk appetite of an insurer is limited and gets more and more limited, the ability and the need for a captive becomes even more and more pronounced. So we've seen a lot of growth. COVID is one thing, but I think it's almost like that perfect storm in a positive way. So like a virtuous cycle almost. I can't find the words for it, but yeah, something like that.
Lauren, I know that you're expecting, to have a good session. You want some controversy or you want some debate. The problem, you picked up Farah, and I usually concur to what Farah says. So I'm not going to find any room for I would say or lively debate. But again, I think the theme is super important, and here again, fully in agreement with what Farah just said. It's about self-insurance, and let's be clear for the risk managers listening to this or watching this session today. Self-insurance, if not properly, proactively, I would say structured, will eat you one day, because self-insurance is there, but it's like you are not taking care of it, and entering the conversation about what are the risks our organization is facing, and hence what are the risk financing or the risk appetite the company wants to have is pivotal. This is where you have to start. Then you enter the conversation about what are the solutions on the market in terms of structuring this self-insurance, and captive is one of them. And within captive, as mentioned by Farah, there is a few. Let's be blunt. The insurance industry, we blame usually the insurance industry for not being very innovative. And as I was chatting with Farah and Lauren before this session, I was saying that the virus, at least unlike the virus, was very good at mutating and adapting to the situation. We do believe that the insurance market is not that good at it. And so when it comes to the innovation, where we do not see proper innovation from the insurance market, the commercial insurance market, to cover certain of the risks we have, organizations are facing, then you need to have this self-insurance risk appetite conversation first. And then you go for captive. And captive has been actually, the captive market has been actually quite innovative. If you go back to what Farah said about association captive sale, renting a captive, I mean, there is plenty of options where you can start. If you are, let's say, not a mature organization in terms of having captive solution in place, there is places where you can start humbly and develop something which is sound for your organization. But here again, the challenge: are we as the risk managers association or the risk manager community, are we good? Are we up to the challenge? Because for some of them, if you enter now the conversation, you need to make it happen, and you need to make it happen in a, I would say, in a very structured and compelling way to your CFO. Because now we are going to talk about what I already praise or would say support and champion in my different addresses as chairman of Parimar, which is insurance is, or self-insurance is, strategic risk financing. So you have to pitch it in a strategic manner to your key stakeholders internally.
And we've mentioned it a little bit before, but there is kind of a growing interest in cell captives and PCCs in Asia. Usually this has been something that was kind of championed in the US, and they're very popular over there. But how is it kind of growing in the Asian market, Farah?
I think Asians are generally very, very cost averse. Right? So the moment you have a solution, okay, so we've been talking about captives for a while now. It's the awareness piece and all the rest of it. But I think it's this great combo of being averse to cost. So they want a very cost-efficient solution. They want an easy to-go solution. But they also want a solution that is able to then ramp up. So if you have a cell within a PCC, you can then convert it into a pure. Basically, it's like captives on a training wheel. Why wouldn't you want one, right? It's a bit like also the concept of a virtual captive, where you have that relationship, you have that virtual captive, and then when you're ready, you ramp it up. So the idea of the cell and the growth of the cell is very much hinged on cost, time efficiency, and ease of management, right? So we've seen growth definitely, but what we have seen also is kind of morphing. So it's like a tier, right? So you've got a cell that's like captives with training wheels, and then you've got a pure captive, let's say, you've got association captive. Then from there, some people actually move into becoming reinsurers. And I think a lot of jurisdictions play this card a little bit differently. Some jurisdictions allow for third-party risk very clearly. Some jurisdictions don't. Like our competitor in Asia, they don't allow for third-party at all. We have a tolerance level, after which then we look at the captive and say, why don't you become a reinsurer? Right? Then you're kind of moving up the scale, as it were. And that is where we see, because, what we would like to be as a jurisdiction is be able to meet the needs of the market in the next 5 to 10 years. We have had the same approach towards captives for the longest time. Maybe we haven't done a great enough job until recently to kind of talk it up. But now is crunch time for Labuan, in the sense that really if we want to move up to the next year, we're going to have to look at our provisions, our structures, and how we're going to be able to really be nimble and able to satisfy the growing needs of the license holders. Because, COVID is just one thing that's happening at the moment, right? And it will happen. It will continue to happen. It's not like momentarily. It will continue to happen. But my point is, I guess, the days of a very plain, vanilla kind of reinsurance industry is gone, right? And I think as a jurisdiction, what we need to do is to be able to cater for potential use cases, right? As flexible as possible. But at the same time, meeting the regulatory needs. So we've seen a lot of new cells. And that's great for the jurisdiction. We welcome new cells. We welcome new innovation, like purely DLT, digital captives, is something we'd like to see in Labuan. Not just captives managing cyber risk, but captives working on a distributed ledger technology. A complete intratech captive, as it were. That would be fantastic to work on. But really, at the end of it, as much as we've grown and as much as, certain structures have grown, the onus is now on us as the jurisdiction to up it, so that we continue to meet the requirements of the market.
Sorry, and Franck, your thoughts?
Yes, a couple of comments. I mean, first of all, we did witness across Asia Pac a surge of feasibility studies and people looking at developing a captive. Unfortunately, this has been very last minute, and this has been done in a very expedite manner, which cannot fly. So that's maybe for me right now. For me, the issue regarding the word you are using for the session title, commoditization. I would love to see commoditization happening, but it's not happening for sure, because I think that a lot of our organizations across Asia are not yet mature enough to make it a very long-term project for their organization. And this is the way it should be done. There is a few, I would say, expedite ways to structure your risk financing, your self-insurance, as we discussed with Farah. But if you want to establish your own captive, it's a long-term project. And there is some educational journey to go through within your organization to make people completely aligned with it. Because it's like, years ago, captive were known for being a good way to optimize your tax position. And we know that that's not the right way to do it. And that's not the right thing to target as a main goal for organization. The same applies to the hardening market. Hardening market is an opportunity to create a momentum to get this conversation triggered. But it's not the only or main reason to develop your own risk financing tools such as captive. So that's the first point I wanted to make. There is also the fact that right now in this market, as mentioned by Farah, I think that the commercial insurance market is changing, and is not changing so that we can go back to normal later on. There is going to be, and I hate this expression by the way, but there is going to be this new normal. And this new normal is going to be when it comes to your risk mapping for an organization, a large percentage of your risk are not insurable. So hence you have to find your own way to manage this. And to manage this, you need, again, to structure your self-insurance or your risk appetite. And your risk appetite being obviously voluntary when you are aware of the risk you are facing, but sometimes involuntary, because you know that there is no way to transfer the risk to somebody. Hence the need to structure it in a way such as captive are offering.
Do you? I've got actually a question for Franck, and this hasn't been rehearsed and we haven't discussed it yet. But I'm very curious because we talk about insurers and reinsurers, and their allergic reaction sometimes towards self-insurance. Do you think that the risk management community in Asia is ready to meet this challenge, to be able to tell that narrative, to be able to strategically align the goals of the company together with their risk management aims?
The short answer is no, and the longer answer is not yet. I know that the Labuan IBFC organization that you are leading, Farah, I know that Parima and other stakeholders are developing a lot of education sessions, a lot of opportunities for people to be better at managing and being comfortable with this type of solutions. This being said, there is still a lot to be done, and I want to echo what you said about the cost element of a conversation. So still insurance, but it's changing obviously. Still insurance globally speaking, including self-insurance, is seen as being a commoditized thing. It's like basically buying the pile of papers that you need for your Xerox machine. That's the way some organizations are looking at insurance. So how to elevate the conversation so that people understand that it needs to be strategic. It's risk financing. That's for us, I think, the key point. So yes, the community of risk managers and insurance buyers are not all equipped today, but this situation, which is unprecedented, is pushing everybody to go to the next level. And I obviously we have to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. I hope for the best in terms of looking at some of them being successful in articulating this sophisticated conversation.
And I think the point you made, Franck, about captives being, and we talked before about it being a long-term strategy. We said that if people are getting in during the hardening market, it's not maybe the best idea. But I think that what it is about that is if you're looking at the long-term strategy, like you mentioned, this is a great time. As long as you're looking at it long term and not thinking, oh, the market's hardening, oh, there's a pandemic, let's just get something in, for now, to fix that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I saw literally, as risk manager, my own company is equipped with a captive structure, which is life and non-life. And so I have a decent lineup of peers knocking at my door, so that they can talk to me and the people working with me, so that they can say, how did you do it and how do you manage this? So the striking point is that I saw so many people going to us and say, it's I don't know, my main renewal is 1st of July, it's early May, I want a captive to replace or to beef up my, and it can't happen this way. So you, as you can see, it's like in the football players market, we call it panic buying. It's basically panic buying. It's like, I need something because I can't go back to my CFO and say I'm going to suffer a 200% premium increase. So I need to find another solution. But you can't rush it this way. You have to set the scene. The scene is that it's an hardening market. So it's a proper trigger to have the conversation, but it's going to be a long-term journey to make it happen.
So we have 3 minutes left. So I'm just going to ask for kind of like a closing statement. When you're looking at this, what would be the main point you want to get across to people watching? So Farah?
Use this opportunity. I know it's very cliche-ish, but you're never going to get an opportunity like this ever again to push an agenda, right? And if this opportunity is not taken the right way and really pushed through with the right kind of messaging, then it'll be waste. Number one. Number two, the message to the market vis-a-vis the jurisdiction is that it's growing, it's great, we're open for business, and we are going to be morphing our offering to make it even better, right? So we're not sitting still, as it were. I think the third message is probably a message Franck and I share, which is come to Parima's Resilience Week, where you will be able to join the Asian Captive Conference and have a further conversation about this. Yeah, that would be it for me.
Franck?
How do you want me to disagree with Farah now? No, but yes, this is a unique opportunity. I mean, let's be blunt, simple, and short. This is a unique opportunity. What does it mean? If it means that as a risk manager or insurance buyer, you are not leveraging on this opportunity, somebody else will within your organization. And the last thing you want as a risk manager is to see somebody from the CFO team developing a risk financing tool that you're not going to be part of. And or even worse, a company will continue to ignore the self-insurance aspect of running their business. We know that a lot of organizations right now have to face huge risks and huge problems, such as the economic depression, cost pressure, and everything. It makes it even more relevant to the conversation to develop your own long-term risk financing tool. So yes, that's for me it's about making sure that after this event and potentially just after listening to the sessions of the Parima Resilience event, where by the way some of the sessions are going to be done with the Labuan IBFC. It's about now I'm equipped to start the conversation, and I'm going to start the conversation. Do not waste this. It's happening right now. You need to trigger this conversation now.
Thank you so much. That's unfortunately all we have time for. But I just want to thank you both. It's always great talking to you.